James. Tu Diep's voice was soft, almost a whisper, carrying both familiarity and distance as dusk slowly settled around them. The fading light slipped through the old wooden window and rested gently on the small kitchen, where the air felt heavy with things left unsaid. James sat quietly, watching her move by the stove, noticing how tired she looked, not only from the burdens of life outside but from the long silence between them. He finally spoke, asking if she was exhausted, apologizing for the harsh words he had spoken before, for losing control of his emotions that day. Tu Diep did not argue or blame him, she only gave a faint smile, one filled more with sadness than resentment. They cooked together like they once had, sharing small, familiar gestures, turning the food, placing it onto plates, pouring hot coffee, simple actions that stirred memories of warmth and a home they had nearly lost. It had been a long time since they had truly sat down to eat together. And James ate quickly, not because he was hungry, but because he feared that if he slowed down, the fragile moment would slip away. When the house grew quieter and the evening deepened, James finally opened his heart. He told her about the day he left the country to search for Hong, the days of fear and helpless wandering, and the painful discovery that Hong had already been harmed by fate. He spoke of arranging everything in silence, hiding the truth from his father, and of his desperate attempt to return to Vietnam, only to be stopped by his own father's interference. With power and control, not words, his father had trapped him there, leaving him no escape for a long time. When James finally returned, he came back with empty hands and a heart full of wounds. Tu Diep listened without interrupting, every word sinking deeply into her chest. When he asked how she had lived during his absence, she said she kept working, kept enduring each day with the help of others. But life without him felt unbearably dull. NHI missed him deeply, crying whenever his name was mentioned. James lowered his head, guilt pressing heavily on his chest. Tu Diep admitted that she never wanted things to become so complicated, she had only wanted a quiet life with him. With NHI, and with family. She confessed that returning without telling him had made him worry so much that his anger that day had been justified. The conversation slowly turned toward what frightened her most. James was gathering evidence, preparing to confront his father. Tu Diep could not accept that their love would destroy his family. No matter how wrong his father might be, he was still his father, and she did not want James to live the rest of his life carrying such pain. James spoke of his poverty, of lacking status and power, and how that might be the true reason his father never accepted her. Tu Diep understood too well. Then, holding back tears, she said the words that broke her heart: if their love required him to hurt his father, she would rather let it end. James froze, unable to respond. Tu Diep explained that she did not want him to become unfilial or to live in regret because of her. Having grown up an orphan, she understood the pain of losing family. She stood up, quietly gathered the child's clothes, and prepared to leave, apologizing through silent tears, saying she did not truly want to stop loving him, but she could not allow him to hurt his father for her sake. James did not stop her, not because he did not love her, but because his love was too deep to bind her with guilt. Time passed, and life moved forward in quieter ways. The house once again filled with the gentle sounds of a child's laughter as Tu Diep cooked, cared for NHI, reminded her to study well, and listened to her innocent stories. James was no longer there. When NHI asked why Uncle James did not come to play, Tu Diep smiled softly and said he was busy with work. She spoke of a large Christmas tree and promised to ask James if they could go together someday. But deep in her heart, she knew that some promises were fragile, and some separations, once made, were painfully hard to mend. While somewhere far away James lived with his deepest fear, that the woman he loved most had been pushed out of his life by the very world he was trying to protect her from.